Welcome to Larry's Library, and welcome to another Incredible Hulk review. This time I'm going forward on my Peter David Incredible Hulk run read-through. This is my review of Incredible Hulk by Peter David Omnibus Volume 4. I finished this up yesterday, and I got a lot of notes here. So this one has an MSRP of, let's see, $125. But as always, come on, don't be a chump. Get it at a nice online discounter like InStockTrades.com, my preferred vendor for Omnis. And there right now, I looked it up and it's showing $77.50 for the price. That's a pretty good discount. Now this is a big boy. This is 1,248 pages and it has no page numbers. And you know how much I love that. What's the deal? I'm still waiting for someone to explain to me why it's so hard to put in page numbers. And I explored it a little bit in Volume 3's review, if you've seen that, where I think it has something to do with the full bleed pages that became more prevalent, I guess, during the mid to late 90s. That may have something to do with it. I'm not sure. If anyone has insight into that, that knows a little bit about publishing or printing, please let me know down in the comments, because I'd love to know why why they can't seem to put page numbers there. That's baffling and very infuriating when you're trying to reference parts of a large book and there's no page numbers. So this is nearly all written by Peter David, of course. His name's right there on the cover, but there is several different one-shots and minis written by other people than Peter David, including the epilogue at the end is written by Joe Casey. And I think, I'm not sure, I didn't look this up, but I think Joe Casey takes over the title after that last issue that's included here. Because this Omni number 4, this concludes Peter David's 11-year run on the Incredible Hulk. Now there are one or two, depending on how you look at it, more Peter David Hulk Omnis to come. There's a Volume 5, and there's the Maestro Omnibus, which I'm also going to read, which I'm also going to buy. And those are by Peter David. But the material in Volume 5 and in Maestro are years after the material in 1 through 4, for the most part. So this is his 11-year run, concludes with this Omni. Spectacularly concludes. There are 41 issues roughly collected here. And of the 41 issues, Adam Kubert does the art for 14 of them. Angel Medina does the art for 11 issues. And Mike Deodato Jr. does the art for 7 of the issues. Now that leaves about another 11 or so issues if you do the math. And that is by a kind of another one of those army of artists, that I'm not going to name here. But the highlights probably being Salvador LaRocca does 4 of the issues contained in here, and they are top-notch. This one collects Incredible Hulk 436 through 467, the 97 annual, Savage Hulk number 1, that's the 1997 issue of that title, that one-shot, I believe. Cutting Edge 1, another one-shot. Cable number 34, now this is the 1993 Cable series. Onslaught Marvel Universe, another one-shot. Incredible Hulk Hercules Unleashed one-shot. Heroes Reborn The Return 1 through 4. That entire miniseries is in here because Peter David wrote it, and the Hulk heavily ties into that, which I didn't know that before this, because to me, before reading this, rather, the whole Heroes Return, Heroes Reborn, whatever, all that was, in my mind, was just more of that 90s nonsense that I kind of avoided for the most part, along with Onslaught. I didn't care anything about that either. I didn't realize the Hulk tied in so heavily with to both of those events. So that was kind of cool having that included here. So I kind of got pulled kicking and screaming into those events as I was reading this omnibus. So I'm going to start going through the notes I made as I was reading this book. And the first thing I noted was that I was not loving this early Angel Medina art. Now, I don't know if it was the very first Angel Medina comic work. It may or may not have been the first Marvel art he done. But man, when I seen that his name in the credits, Angel Medina, I was kind of excited. I was happy about that because I had read, I had experienced a little bit of Angel Medina art in the Warlock and the Infinity Watch series, and that's a '90s series he did with Jim Starlin writing. And I've read a few issues of that, a handful of them. I have issue 1. I actually have issue 1 autographed, the cover autographed by Angel Medina. And that's one I got myself. That's one of the few comic autographs I have that Kristen didn't get for me. I actually got that one myself in Wizard World, Chicago, 2005, I think it was. Really nice guy. And I remember liking the art in that. But like I said, when I learned in this Omni that he was going to do a big chunk of it, I thought, okay, cool, that should be good because I kind of liked him, you know. And I absolutely did not enjoy it at all. If he was an actor in a film, I would say this is a total miscast. That's what I would say. His art did not fit the Incredible Hulk at all. This was a terrible decision by some editor to have him draw this book. It did not play to his strengths. I don't think it fit the character in the slightest. I don't think it fit the material. I thought it was horrible. In fact, it was so bad, and this was the first big section. Well, there's a little section at the beginning with some minis and one-shots that are by other artists. But then when it gets into the regular issues, it's all Angel Medina for, 14 issues straight, something like that. And 11. It felt a lot longer than 11 issues, I gotta say. Yeah, I've got 11 down here in my notes, but and it felt like 20 or 30 issues, and it was so bad. It was such a slog to get through that art. I didn't think I was going to be able to do it. I actually considered just not finishing this. You know, it was that bad. About 4 or 5 issues into it, I was like, I can't take any more of this art. The Hulk, he just looks so weird, and it wasn't just the Hulk. All the other characters looked bizarre too. They all of the male characters especially looked bizarre. Strange, really large noses, just extreme cartooniness, but in a very bizarre way. I'm not even sure how to describe it. Maybe I'll include a scan or two to show you what that looked like, but it was awful. I just can't even really describe how bad it was and how ill-fitting it was for this title. I thought it was bad. So bad. So yeah, I mean, the writing's great throughout. I was really intrigued by that. Thankfully, Mike Deodato Jr. came to my rescue, and he came on the title right as I was about to just give up and stop reading this omnibus. I really was. But then it starts in with the Mike Deodato art, and I've always been a huge fan of Mike Deodato. I love his stuff, and this is no different. Now, I think this is some of the very earliest Deodato. I mean, certainly the earliest Deodato I've seen. I don't know if that was his first comic work, but it was very early, and it was a little rough at times. But even with the rough edges, you could see that this was an artist who was going to just get better and better and better, and that he did. And his art fit the Hulk pretty good. And I was really dreading his short little run ending. What did I say that was? 7 issues. Deodato did, I believe. Yeah, 7 of them. And I loved all of it. Even the more rougher early ones, it was a little rough at times, but he just kept getting better and better. Very atmospheric, very moody, good stuff. It worked for the Hulk. Now, another thing I have in my notes here is that the Angel Medina art did get quite a few degrees better when Robin Riggs came in and started inking him. So I'm not sure I don't remember who the inker was before that, but it got a little better when Riggs came in. But it was still bad. So this starts out with the new Major Talbot. We find out that, which Talbot had died previously in this, but this is the new Major Talbot, who's the nephew of Betty's ex, Major Talbot, that Betty used to be married to. So this guy is obviously a psycho, just bent on destroying the Hulk. So I got in my notes here that he captures Banner after learning the secret about his new condition, where he turns into Banner with the dumb Hulk intellect if he loses his temper. So yeah, that's a thing that happened where it didn't last very long. The Hulk's changing and his transformations go through a lot of changes in this omnibus, and really throughout the entire Peter David Hulk run. What triggers him and what causes it to happen and when it happens, it changes a lot. And at one little short interval here, if he loses his temper, he changes into Banner physically. But he still has the old Savage Hulk smash intellect in place. So it's weird. And it's like the worst of all possible worlds for Bruce Banner. You know, if he loses it, he turns into the Savage Hulk, but he has the body of Bruce Banner. And he still thinks he's invulnerable. So he's running into hails of bullets. He's that he can't possibly survive. You know, I mean, yeah, it's bad. And he nearly he wrecks himself several times, and he nearly dies over all that before it finally changes again. Yeah, and I got in my notes here a group called Head Shop, who were victims of the leader's double cross. They bust Banner out and get him away from Talbot at one point. That was pretty cool. Rick Jones and Marlowe start doing their late night talk show. So that's the thing that happened. It was kind of strange. The Onslaught crossover comes in with Storm and Cable guesting. So that was pretty neat. Mike Deodato's art starts with issue 447. I have my notes. Couldn't have come early enough for me. That really saved me reading this Omni. So another thing from my notes here, I've got after fighting and seemingly defeating Onslaught, the Hulk is reborn in a weird cocoon-like shell. When it finally opens, he is a new Savage Hulk who doesn't seem to remember Betty. You know, he tells Betty, I've never seen you before. He ends up battling what is left of the Pantheon. If you remember what happened in the last omnibus, the Pantheon ended up in ruins, but they still exist. Yeah, and then briefly we have the leave me alone or else plot line where the Hulk tells the government, tells the army, says, look, I've told you before I wanted to be left alone, and now I'm telling you, you leave me alone or I'm going to retaliate. And he goes off by himself, and they actually seem to respect that for a little while. But you know that's not going to last. You know, that would be too easy for Bruce Banner and the Hulk. One thing I noted here that the sideways pages are very annoying and add nothing. This happens 2 or 3 times in this omnibus where you have to flip the omnibus sideways to read it. Horrible. Whoever thought that was a good idea, go sit in a corner, okay? And you lose your editing privileges for a while because that's a terrible idea. It's dumb. Never do that, okay? Dumb. Yeah. I don't think I'm alone in that. I think everyone finds it annoying when they're reading a comic book and all of a sudden they got to turn it sideways. And if it was just a one-shot deal, okay, maybe. But then you turn the next page, you flip it, you turn the next page, and it's also wrong. Now you got to turn that one. That is very annoying. That happens 2 or 3 times. And it's especially even worse when you're not reading the comic book in single issue format. You're reading it in a hardcover or a trade paperback, in a collected format, let's say, where you do have some gutter loss. Even in the best versions of a collected edition, you're going to have some minimal gutter loss. At least minimal, could be more than minimal. And now you've got this, you got some of the text going up in there. That's bad. Now, of course, when they put this out, I'm sure they never dreamed that there would be omnibuses later. But even in single issue format, that's a bad idea. And no, I'm not going to scan and show examples of that because that would be terrible to even attempt on my flatbed. I'm not even going to do that. So I have noted here too that issue 454, Adam Kubert art begins, and it is great. And I've been a fan of Adam Kubert ever since I ran into his art. I think the first time I seen it was probably in some of the Ultimate books, probably Ultimate X-Men or something like that, where he traded back and forth with his brother Andy, and I love both of those guys. And I think this is some very early Adam Kubert art, but man, it's great. He was great right out of the gate, and he just kept getting better and better. In fact, I'm going to say something probably that will be surprising to some people, especially older comic book fans, or fans of older comic book art, I should say. I think Adam Kubert is better than his dad ever was. And I like Joe Kubert's stuff as well, but Adam Kubert is awesome. And he is a perfect fit for the Incredible Hulk. Yeah, and one thing that happens during that I noted here that was great was when the Hulk finds out about Wolverine's bone claws. Is really a great and funny bit, and I'll try to show a scan of that. Yeah, that was fantastic. So this is during that mid '90s time period where Wolverine had the bone claws, but the Hulk hadn't met him since that had happened. So Wolverine attacks him with those bone claws right across the throat, and the Hulk is expecting to really bleed out or really start bleeding, and he's like, "What was that? Are those bones?" And he laughs at him. And I also noted here that the Hulk -1 issue or -1 issue came out then, and that's included here. The -1 on a lot of the titles are very gimmicky and just kind of silly, and I as a collector I never appreciated those anyway, even if they were great, because it really screwed up your your cataloging of your books and the way you file them, because you're going along with a title that's at issue 400 and something, and now you got this -1. Do you put it after? Do you put it in the middle? Do you put it at the end? I mean, what do you do with this thing? And then when you're looking it up in your cataloging software, well, that's really, yeah. So, but in this case, that particular issue, naming aside and issue number aside, it was fantastic. The Hulk -1 issue was the death of Brian Banner, and you find out a lot of stuff. Peter David fills in a lot of information about the relationship between Bruce and his dad, and you find out how Bruce's dad really died, and it is a masterclass on comic book storytelling. Peter David is a brilliant writer. If there was any doubt in anyone's mind up to this point, read Incredible Hulk -1, and you will see comic book writing perfection. That's what that is. The Apocalypse crossover stuff was surprisingly fun for me, being someone that's not into all of the '90s shenanigans. That actually was pretty fun. The Heroes Reborn: The Return, the 4-issue mini, it has some fantastic, really good early Salvador Larroca art. Loved it. Issue 461 has some terrific fill-in art by David Brewer. Now, I had never seen his stuff before, but he does, I think, 3 or 4 issues in here. He kind of trades back and forth, filling in for Adam Kubert. Adam Kubert probably wasn't able to keep up, it'd be my guess. So David Brewer fills in several issues through there, and they're really good. It's a little bit cartoony. The eyes on some of the characters are kind of manga large-like, but it still works somehow, and I really enjoyed it. Yeah, and one I noted here, the issue 461, has the David Brewer art, and it features a battle with the Destroyer armor. That's that Odin enchanted armor from the Thor comics, and man, it's really good. That was really fun. Great issue. And usually fill-in art issues are not my favorites, but that's one of my favorites. It's really good. 464 has more great art by Adam Kubert, I've noted here. This time his dad, Joe Kubert, fills in. Well, he doesn't fill in, but he contributes. He does a couple of the pages, and I think he does a couple of the backgrounds along with his son. So it's really cool seeing them team up together. I don't think I've ever seen that before, and it's done to great effect here. And you can certainly see the different styles. It's very apparent. Joe Kubert's style is much more sketchy and looser than Adam Kubert's more polished, tight look. They go surprisingly well together, though. Yeah, I had a lot of fun seeing that. That was nice. And that story with the collaboration between father and son shows that alien race, the Trojan, coming back. And the Silver Surfer's in there, too. So that was really cool. And, in my review of the last Omni, I mentioned that I would love to see a gallery edition of the Trojan War issues, and I was talking about how there's only 4 of them, so it'd be a little light for a gallery. Now that I've read this, this issue would absolutely have to be included in that gallery, so it would get you at 5 right there for sure. And who knows, maybe they make an appearance in the next Omni. I guess we'll find out, because I'm definitely going to read that and review it. 465, I have known here's another issue drawn by David Brewer with some really exceptional inking by Andrew Pepoy, P-E-P-O-Y, not sure how you pronounce that, but really nice, slick, tight inker. Liked it a lot. Very detailed. The poker game with Bruce, Doc Samson, Reed Richards, Jim Ross, and Tony Stark was pretty cool, and that was a standout from that. I think that's the same issue. Really good stuff. It reminds me of the poker I think it was a monthly poker game that they used to highlight in some of the old Marvel 2-in-1s. With Ben Grimm would always play poker with Wolverine and Nick Fury and different ones, and this was kind of like that. Really good stuff. Yeah, and I have noted here great issues, some great moments between the Hulk and Rick Jones, and some really good moments between Bruce and Betty. Really spectacular comic book right here. Spectacular writing and spectacular art. When they come together like that, it's magic. I just love it. I hate to gush about something, but it was really good. Issue 466 has some great moments I have noted here. One page has General Ross hitting the grieving and desperate Hulk as Betty is sick and fighting for her life in the infirmary in that military base they're staying at. I think it's called Area 102. Yeah, Area 102. Area 51, but twice as secret, I guess. Peter David kills me. We also get a look at that autobiography that Betty had been writing throughout previous issues. Peter David, he's going for the long haul here with his plots. He had plotted this out, at least it seems that he had plotted this out years ahead. Very much like the intricate, long, years-long plots and subplots that Claremont did with the Uncanny X-Men. Peter David has done that here with the Incredible Hulk in his 11-year run. And like I said, this was started many issues ago. We find out that Betty is writing a book about her life with the Hulk and Bruce Banner. And we find out here, it did get published, and it's called Fields of Green. Pretty cool title. And Marlo, Rick Jones's girlfriend, well, wife now, is reading Betty, her friend's book. And we see glimpses of her reading that book throughout these last 2 issues collected in this omnibus. And Adam Kubert's drawing it, fantastic, and Peter David writes the hell out of it. He really does. You see the prose literally in the pages, and I'll show some scans so you know what I'm talking about, but there's whole paragraphs and things. And then Adam Kubert illustrates it in a very different style, in a more painted looking kind of sketchy style. It's beautiful. And it's a striking difference between his more tight, full pencils that he uses for the rest of the issue. So you immediately know, oh, okay, this is more Betty's book. And it's to great effect. It really is. It's again, I think these issues highlight how good the superhero comic can be. And this is when the genre is elevated higher than you would think it could ever be when you read something like this. It's that well done. Yeah, and one thing I noted in my notes here is that Peter David's writing seems to get better and better to match whatever artist he's put with. So when he's put with a really high caliber artist like Adam Kubert, his writing seems to rise up to meet that. I mean, his writing was great with the Angel Medina issues. I'm not saying it wasn't, but it seems to really go over the top here in just how great it is. I mean, I hate to just gush on and on like a fanboy here, but I guess that's what I am. I'm a Peter David fanboy at this point. Yeah, and I have noted here that this is an unbelievably powerful story, and I'm not going to spoil it here by telling you what happens, because it's too much. It should be experienced. In fact, I know my daughter Kristen did sell her Peter David Hulk Omni. She downsized and got rid of a lot of her stuff that she hadn't read yet and didn't think she would get to for a while. And so I know she's not reading this Omni, but these last 2 issues are so great. I think I'm going to, she makes me read stuff sometimes. I think I'm going to make her read those 2 issues. If she can't get it on Marvel Unlimited, I think she subscribes to that, and I'll just loan her the omnibus and say, hey, look, read the last 2 issues here and tell me this isn't some of the greatest comic book work you have ever seen, because I want to get her opinion of it. It's very powerful. And now for this to kind of sum up and get to the end of my review of this Omni, I'm going to read an excerpt from, let's see, what issue is this? This is issue 467, the last issue collected in here. Okay, I'm going to read a little bit of this just to give you an idea of how fantastic a writer Peter David is and the depth he has here when he's writing the Hulk and Bruce Banner. Each time the Hulk let Bruce get just so far and no further, it was as if a perverse aspect of the Hulk was interested to see just what Bruce would do, The more elaborate Bruce's plans, the further the Hulk let him get before stopping him. The first time was, I'll admit, pretty spectacular. Bruce did a swan dive off the top of the Empire State Building. Well, Bruce leaped off, but naturally it was the Hulk that landed. Then the Avengers showed up. What a mess that was. Later, one of Doc Strange's enemies got him into black magic, and he called up Mephisto or someone to drag him off to hell. And the demon just laughed and wouldn't take him. Said Bruce's torment on Earth was too much fun to watch. This is a master of the medium we're talking about here. Doing stuff with a character that has never been done before, and with such heart and depth. It's perfection in comic book form. I've used that phrase before, but it really hits hard right here. This fourth volume of Peter David's Incredible Hulk Omnibus series, it ends his 11-year run, as I noted at the start of this, and it ends on just an incredibly tragic note. Something really, really terrible happens at the end here. And I'm not going to spoil it. I'm not going to tell you what that is. But it's a tearjerker is what it is. And I don't know. I'm looking forward to the next volume, but I know there's a huge time jump and it skips a whole lot of material because this is the end of his 11-year run. So it's kind of bittersweet to close the book on this. And to think that I almost gave up reading it, less than about 40% of the way through. I nearly stopped reading this book, and I'm so glad I didn't, because the last half is so great, with so much great art and so much great writing. It almost seems wrong to give it the 8 out of 10 that I'm giving it, but that's what it is. I mean, if you excise the first 40%, this would be 10 out of 10, an absolute masterpiece. But taken as a whole, got to be honest, this fits right in that 8 out of 10 shelf that I put a lot of books. A lot of the books I read are 8 out of 10. And this is another one. But the last 20% especially, the last half really, is absolute perfection. And I highly recommend it. So that concludes this review. I hope you enjoyed taking a look at some of this art. So subscribe if you haven't already. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this. And I will catch you next time.